So, I think that trench ghosts are one of the strongest factions in the entire game, and I was a bit surprised when I heard about a buff they will receive with a patch 1.6. Or is it a buff, really? Well, it is already out, so let's just look into rules and find out. Everything is kinda the same, except that Heretic Priest loses strong keyword. Seems like a nerf rather than a buff, but to be honest, he lost it only to regain it as a tank palanquin, a new option on a bigger base and with mechanic armor included in the profile. All that for additional 55 points, which is fair deal, I would say. Especially because with that upgrade he is considered as being on the 2-inch height platform, which is essentially 3+1 dice elevation bonus for range attacks. Yes, basic rules change in that case, and now it is required only 2-inch elevation to get a bonus. So yeah, that palanquin is overall a buff. What is next? Well, ghosts lost their dash penalty. I mean, kinda. They do not suffer -1 dice in case of dashing, but that action is generally slower. They do have only 3-inch of additional move expect of 6. So buff or not, I think it is better than -1 dice. Even if not for faction, but generally for the game. Because it is less random than that previous -1 dice. I like the change. Now, failing dash action is not that painful overall because you lost only 3 inches, not full 6-inch move. For me, it's a buff. There is also few additional units available, a couple to be more specific. First, Barbed Wire Banshee, some kind of chorister form with a different ability. I'm not that sure she is better than basic chorister, to be honest, but you don't have to take her, so yeah, this is additional option, so it is a clear buff. And we also have that sarcophagus mines, which are essentially prisoners from trench pilgrims. I mean, maybe not the same, but similar. They can suicide to deal a lot of damage around them, and they can also be activated automatically as reaction to opponent's movement, like mobile mines. Sounds really fine on paper. Definitely would like to try them. And that is all. Not that much maybe, but well, there are some additions, so for me that patch was clearly a buff. Especially the tank palanquin sounds really strong, and I would love to test it. That is why I started to work on expanding my existing warband by few models. There was a room for such an upgrade because I usually play on 700 ducats to fit my warband on the really small table. Thing is, I'm on the way to make a proper size 4x4 battlefield, so I can finally expand all my teams to proper 900 ducats. In case of that ghost, I had a really clear idea. I replaced a priest with a tank palanquin. Because he has strong and machine armor, it would be nice to add him expensive long-range weapon. So I jumped straight into Blender, built a tank tower, placed it on palanquin held by ghosts and started to work on some weaponry. Made an anti-material rifle, which is just a cannon, to be honest, machine gun as a minigun, rocket launcher as a grenade launcher, and flamer as a flamer. And by the way, these weapons are fully switchable. You just need to remove that panel in the front, unfasten the weapon and push another one with a little bit of a force to make it click. And it is rotatable as well, so yeah. Now just needed to paste a priest who is appearing through that vent at the back of a tower. In the last battle report he had staff and a dagger for melee and it was working very well, but I had to change the idea in that new list. There was not enough glory for such a combo because, oh, I forget to mention, I chose anti-material rifle in the end, for better armor penetration, which this team was lacking, I think. But it costs 3 glory points. With 4 spent on SMGs there is only 1 left, not enough for blasphemous stuff, but enough for example, Hellblade. So I took it with a sacrificial dagger. Technically, Palanquin has machine armor, so it might struggle with reaching the combat because of his charging penalty, so yeah, needed someone who would fill the gap. Barbed wire banshee was an option, especially I made it in 3D like instantly after reading the rules for the first time, so I already have a model. But instead I took that death commando, kinda basic one, with a bit of armor, gas grenades and, which is obvious, Tartarus claws. He is basically a melee infiltrator, so he complements few flaws of my warband very well. And I also had a kinda clear idea about his look. I wanted a guy with two sides in place of his arms, as an imitation of that Tartarus claws. And I also wanted to make his pose more dynamic. First to make him even more distinctive, because all other minis are rather static, and also to show his aggressive nature. Added him few characteristic details for that commando, like for example that back panel with, I don't know what is really that, some kind of chemical injectors or something like that, I don't know, just to make him similar to original model. And I'm really happy how it went. I'm not always happy of my work, but in that case, yeah, I am. And that is it, new 900 ducats warband done. But there was still one new unit I wanted to make and print and test in the future, the sarcophagus mines. But to be honest, I was struggling a lot with them. Didn't have a clear idea how they might look because, well, there is sarcophagus in their name, so it sounds a bit like Egyptian? Don't know. I had an idea to make coffins with dynamite inside, but that would be rather coffin mine, not sarcophagus, right? So I pasted a phrase sarcophagus in Google and realized that is not exactly correlated to any Egyptian culture. Sarcophagus is just a nice looking coffin made usually with some kind of stone. But how to connect that with a mine? Well, I just made a temporary prototype, but it might end up as a final version if I won't have better idea. Took a sarcophagus from my graveyard set, links in the description, and splitted it with an explosion. Thing is, that model is a little bit too big. Sarcophagus doesn't fit to the 25mm base. So yeah, still a prototype. And now I can finally say I did everything I wanted. Let's paint most important palanquin and that commando. This time, as I knew the scheme, painting process was rather easy, especially with a commando because it took some time with palanquin. I wanted to highlight these black and yellow colors, which are technically main scheme of a warband, but this occur only on parts of legionaries armor, so it's not that much visible overall. Because of that, I chose two panels of the tank tower and painted them both with these colors. One full yellow and another with checker. I used technique I usually do not use, stippling with a sponge. But before we go to everyday matters, a lesson. I decided to change a pose of a banshee, even though I treated that model as a finished. Thing is, well, that was really hard to take a good screenshot of that model because it is leaning forward and most important details like double face, boobs and that outstretched hand are directed downwards. From the perspective of a player it's even worse because we just look at the board from above, so there was some additional posing needed. I played a bit with some modifiers and changed position of that important left hand and yeah, works done. It's such a pity there is no enough room for that model in my warband, but I just cannot kick my dead commando. I love that miniature. One of the best I created last year and it is probably best trench ghost, so yeah. Let's just end that episode here. Everyone has some stuff to do. I have a plan for another episode, for example, and I can tell you that you do not really expect what will happen, because...
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition!